Clear. Hi, it's Ghost with Combat Sports Supply, and today we're going over the ASG FRAG C Field Reloadable Airsoft Grenade Contact. New grenade by ASG. It's 100% reusable flashbang simulator / noise distraction device. Well, in lieu of our usual unboxing, I'm just going to explain that this does come disassembled. It does have some assembly required. It's not that hard. The only part that's going to require any tools is this plate down here, which requires a rubber mallet or something to seat it flush. They put the QR code on the back for the installation of all the parts on it, and it's actually super handy and really well done. As far as build quality on these, they kind of went overboard on it. It's a really high-end DuPont polymer. I'm not going to get into the technical details, but it's a really high-end plastic that's used on this that's very, very resilient. And everything else is stainless steel. They're super light. The manufacturer says they're about 7 ounces. I just weighed this one. It's 6.7 ounces. Now, while that means that this is not that hard to throw because it's not a big, heavy chunk of material, try not to throw it at your buddy's head. As far as how this grenade works, it actually uses a shot shell primer. You can buy these at plenty of different stores around the US. On the bottom of the box, it'll tell you which one. It's a number 209, and then that primer will just go in this solid base cap. For the top half of this, it does have a firing pin mechanism in it, but it's on a very robust safety system that takes some effort to turn on and off. As you notice, that's a little tough to push, but now it would normally be armed if it was assembled. From the very obviously spent primer and the blackened interior of our lower, you can tell we've been testing this a little bit. And the reason we were testing it is their literature claims that they call it a wobbler. I think it's a neat little name, but that this will go off when dropped from less than 12 inches. This little wobbler thing is on a spring, and it can go just about any direction, but it's attached to the firing pin that sets off the primer. What that means is that regardless of how this hits the ground, this wobbler is going to move, whether it be down, side to side, whatever, and it's going to strike that primer, at which point, bang. As far as how loud the bang is, setting this off right next to me, just dropping it on the ground, it's enough to like overpressure my ears a little bit, but it doesn't make my ears ring or anything. The factory specs say it's up to about 120 decibels. For reference, that's about the noise level of a jet engine, but it's very brief. As far as the airsoft applications for this, it makes a good frag grenade / flashbang grenade. The biggest issue I see with it is a lot of fields will see it as a pyrotechnic, because if you do not clean this, it will spit sparks. This grenade itself might be kind of spendy to get into. The reusability and the cheapness of getting it functional again totally make it worth it. We found out that the shot shell primers are between 7 and 14 cents a piece. It's less expensive to rearm this than any CO2 grenade or even a green gas grenade. On the bright side of things, they also made it narrow enough that it will fit in most 40mm grenade pouches. We have 40mm grenade pouches here, and they do in fact fit. As far as other use cases for this, they do come in 3 different colors. There's this orange one, a black one, and then a training blue one. Considering the fact that it does produce a flash, and it is pretty darn loud, you can use this as a training simulator for flashbangs, or more precisely, and this one was actually brought to my attention by a gentleman at the store where I got the primers for it, you can use it to train your dogs to get used to shotguns. Now, I briefly mentioned cleaning earlier. You'll see some residue on here, some residue on here. And then the big one is this lower hole. This was originally orange. It is now very black. I've cleaned it a couple of times. I need to get some chemicals to clean it properly, but you're gonna wanna clean this out because the powder will build up in here and cause more and more sparks and melt this more and more as time goes on. So in reference to the sparks I said it might throw earlier if you don't clean it, this is what I'm getting at. That charred the concrete just from it spitting out sparks. As far as this thing going off in your hand or anything, I've tried throwing this, dropping it, you name it, yanking it out of a pouch. I have yet to set this off unintentionally. As far as throwing it, that was actually one of my biggest concerns when we got this, was that If I threw it, this was going to deploy and set it off in my hand. So I was wearing gloves to double check, but it doesn't produce enough of a shock load on the system to set off the primer until it impacts something solid. As far as my final thoughts on this thing, it is a wonderfully designed grenade. Sure, this might be a little more expensive than other grenades initially, but grand scheme, it's less expensive to rearm this than any CO2 grenade or even a green gas grenade. The biggest problem you're going to run into is whether or not your field allows pyro, because if you don't clean this, it will eventually spit sparks and possibly cause a fire.
Don't be a fool!